What if the moment you feel like giving up is the exact moment you're closest to everything you've ever wanted? What if the heaviness in your chest, the silence in your room, the ache in your soul isn't a sign to stop, but a sign to listen? What if all this pressure you're under is not punishment but preparation, and you're too tired to notice you're about to break through? You've fought battles no one clapped for. You've carried weights no one saw. You've smiled while sinking, worked while empty, showed up when your own mind told you to stay down, and now here you are, seconds from turning back, whispering lies you once swore you'd never believe. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I'm not built for this. Maybe this dream was foolish. But let me ask you, who put those thoughts in your head? Who convinced you that doubt means defeat? Who told you that the fire burning around you wasn't meant to shape you? You've walked too far into the storm to walk out dry. This moment, this exact second, where your breath is shallow and your energy is thin. This is the proving ground. This is the part they never talk about. The quiet collapse, the secret war, the breaking point behind closed doors. This is the test the world won't see, but your future will never forget. Because the truth is, most people don't quit. When it's hard, they quit when it's almost done. When the finish line is too close to see, but too far to touch. When the voices in their head start to sound like truth. And that's where you are now, right here in the fog. No applause, no reward, no clear way forward. But here's the secret. This fog, it only shows up before something shifts. This silence, it only gets louder when your soul is about to scream. So I'm not here to rescue you. I'm here to remind you. That voice inside, the one begging you to rest, to retreat, to disappear. That voice is not your future. That voice is fear, dressed as logic. And the longer you listen, the further you drift. So if you feel like quitting right now, if you're standing at the edge and no one would know if you stepped back, good. That means you're closer than you've ever been. And the only way to win now is to not leave, to breathe through the fire, to walk through the weight, to stand tall in the silence until your strength returns, because it will. And when it does, the world will ask how you did it, and you'll say, I didn't quit. When no one was watching, I didn't fold. When I had every reason to, I stayed. And that made all the difference. They told you if it's hard, it's wrong. That resistance means stop. That pain means pause. But what if that's the biggest lie you've ever believed? What if the moment things start to feel impossible is not the signal to step back, but the call to rise higher? You were taught to avoid discomfort, to seek the path of least resistance. But listen to me, the path of greatness was never meant to be smooth. It was meant to be forging. Let me take you somewhere real. A few years ago, I met a man named James Blue, Collar, Staten Island. Rough hands, tighter jaw, the kind of man who worked with silence instead of words. He was building his own contracting business from scratch. No investors, no legacy, just hunger. First 2 years, nothing worked. Clients ghosted. His own brother told him to quit and go back to the union. One night I found him sitting on the floor of his unfinished office. Bill's scattered eyes blank, whispering, maybe this wasn't meant for me. That's when I asked him, why do you think it's supposed to be easy? He paused. Because no one had ever asked him that. Because deep down, we've all been conditioned to believe that success, if it's truly meant for us, should feel effortless. But here's the truth, and you better lock it in. Hard does not mean wrong, it means you're becoming. Because diamonds are not discovered, they're formed. Under pressure, in darkness, over time. No applause, no shortcuts, just grinding. So why do we flinch when the weight shows up? Why do we interpret difficulty as misalignment instead of proof that we're on sacred ground? Let me ask you something personal. When did you start believing that struggle was punishment? Who sold you that idea? Because it wasn't reality. Reality doesn't give gifts, it gives tests. And your response to those tests determines who you become. James didn't quit that night. He stood up, picked up the bills, and said, if this is what it costs, I'll pay it. Today, his company employs 40 men. You know what? He told me last time we spoke, it wasn't the success that built me. It was surviving the stretch when nothing worked. That right there, that's the line. Most people break in the stretch. They turn around at the pressure point and say, I guess this wasn't for me. But what if the pain was never the end? What if it was the portal? The test that separates the curious from the committed. That moment right before everything shifts. I'm telling you now, if it's hard, don't run. If it's stretching, you keep going. Because it's not there to break you. It's there to strip away everything soft in you, everything doubtful, everything borrowed, everything average. And underneath all of that is the man the world has not met yet, the man you were born to be. the man who doesn't stop because it's hard, the man who becomes unrecognizable because he didn't quit when everything in him screamed to. So here's your warning. The storm will not stop just because you hesitate. And here's your promise if you face it, if you carry the weight and refuse to fold. What's waiting on the other side isn't just reward, it's rebirth. Let me be crystal clear. Easy never built anything worth remembering. Every leader, every innovator, every builder you admire got there the same way through, not around, not later. Through, the hardship is not a wall, it's a threshold, a gateway, and only those who lean into the heat ever step into the future they once saw in a dream. You want to know the truth. You were never being punished, you were being prepared. The hardship didn't come to stop you. It came to see if you were serious, and now it's your move. Let me ask you something that might cut deeper than you expect. When did you start calling yourself a quitter? Was it after the third setback? The fifth unanswered email? That night you stared at your own reflection and didn't recognize the man looking back. Somewhere along the line, someone or something convinced you that because you fell, you were finished. That because you paused, you were powerless. That because you doubted, you were done. But that's not truth. That's a story you've been hypnotized into repeating. And here's what I need you to understand with every fiber of your being. You are not the man who quits. The man who quits lives in the past. The man who quits is a memory stitched together by hesitation, excuses and broken promises. But you right now, you are standing in the only place that matters, the present. And in the present, identity is a decision, not a diagnosis. Let me tell you about a man named David. He wasn't a millionaire, wasn't famous. He was a high school janitor in the Bronx. Woke up at 4 a.m, swept classrooms, cleaned up messes. Nobody thanked him for, but what made David different was how he saw himself. He didn't say, I'm just a janitor. He said, I'm the man who finishes what he starts. Every day before his shift, he'd write one sentence in a small black notebook. I am a finisher. He said it like a ritual, day after day, until it soaked into him. Until people around him started noticing something different. Students stopped skipping class because David cared. Teachers confided in him because David listened. And one day, when the school nearly closed due to budget cuts, it was David who organised the community, raised funds and kept the doors open. That's right, a janitor saved the school. And when the local paper asked how he did it, David said 6 words, I'll never forget, because quitters don't wear my name. You feel that's identity, not just what you do, but who you decide to become. So let me ask you, what name are you carrying? What title are you silently repeating every time things get hard? Are you calling yourself lazy because you feel tired? Are you labeling yourself a failure because something didn't work? Or are you ready to say what's true, that the man inside you is not done, not broken, not average? He's becoming, and becoming is brutal. Becoming costs everything. It demands silence, repetition, resilience. It doesn't feel like fire, it feels like ashes at first, but that's how rebirth begins. You burn the old labels to make space for the real name, the name you've been hiding from. You see, identity isn't something you find, it's something you install, through action, through decision, through the repetition of words that build instead of break. What do you say to yourself every morning? Because if you've been waking up with the sentence, I'm tired, you're building exhaustion into your soul. If you've been saying, I don't know if I can, you're wiring uncertainty into your foundation. But what if you chose different words? What if every single day before your feet touch the ground, you said, I am the man who moves. Anyway, I am the one who finishes. I am not who I used to be. Wouldn't your energy shift? Wouldn't your spine straighten? Wouldn't your whole presence change in the room? That's not a theory. That's neural wiring. That's psychology backed by repetition. Because your subconscious doesn't care if it's true. It only cares if it's repeated. And if you repeat weakness, you become weak. If you repeat identity, you become undeniable. Now I'm going to say something most people won't say to you. You were lied to. You were told that identity is shaped by talent, by background, by chance. That some men are born confident, born bold, born decisive. That's not true. Confidence is installed, boldness is rehearsed, decisiveness is trained, and every day you speak strength into your bones. You are no longer the man who folds. You are the man who rises. But here's the warning, and listen closely. If you don't take control of your identity, someone else will. The world will name you lazy. Your past will name you lost, fear will name you coward. And over time, if you don't speak up, those names stick. But you today, you are writing your own name again. You are speaking it back into existence. And if no one else believes it, yet, that's okay. Identity doesn't need agreement. It needs evidence. And that evidence is what you build next. The next move you make, the next hour you push, the next time you don't hit snooze, don't ghost your goals, don't hide when the weight hits. Every time you act in alignment with your chosen identity, you reprogram the code. And that, my friend, is how you become unrecognizable. Not in one day, not in one speech, but through relentless daily execution of a new self-image. The man who finishes, the man who executes, the man who does not quit. So say it now, say it like a vow. I am not the man who quits. I am the man who finishes. Say it every morning until it becomes your walk. Say it every night until it becomes your rest. Say it in the silence when no one is watching, because that's when it matters most. You're not repeating lies anymore. You're rewriting reality, one sentence at a time. And when this world meets you again, they won't recognize your name, but they will remember your results, and you'll know exactly why. Because you chose to become the man. They said you couldn't, the man who never gave up. Pain is not the enemy. It's the initiation, the invitation, the opening to everything you said you wanted, but never knew how to reach. And if you misunderstand that, if you keep calling pain the reason to stop, you will sabotage your own rise every single time. So let's be real about it. What if the pain you're feeling right now isn't here to destroy you, but to deliver you? Not to weaken you, but to awaken the part of you that can only be built through resistance, the part that can't be bought, can't be borrowed, can't be faked, only forged, only found through fire. And maybe that's what you've been running from. Not pain itself, but the transformation. Hiding inside it, let me tell you something raw, something most people will never admit out loud. Most men don't fear the pain, they fear who they'll have to become to survive it. And that's why they run. That's why they numb, that's why they collapse. The second life applies pressure, because deep down they know that if they face this, if they sit with it, if they carry it, they will never be the same again. And becoming someone new requires the death of who you used to be. And let's be honest, death, even the symbolic kind, terrifies people, but not you. Not anymore, not after this, because you're about to learn something that changes everything. You think you know about struggle. Let me introduce you to Ryan, 38, Midwest father of 3, worked construction for 15 years. Then one morning scaffolding gave way. Fall, shattered his pelvis, crushed 3 vertebrae, and just like that, the man who could carry beams on his shoulders couldn't walk to the mailbox without pain. Depression followed, lost his job, lost his confidence, lost his sense of identity. And for a year, Ryan stayed in that dark space, questioning everything, until one morning he looked in the mirror and said something I'll never forget. If I can feel this much pain and still wake up, then maybe pain isn't my punishment, it's my proof I'm still in the fight. That moment changed everything for him. Not the rehab, not the medication, not the support. It was the meaning he gave the pain. And that's the key. Most people miss. Pain is not just physical or emotional pain, it's perspective. And if you label pain as failure, as punishment, as rejection, your brain builds a pattern of avoidance. But if you relabel it, if you decide pain is feedback, growth, purification, then your mind doesn't run from it. It learns to rise inside it. So let me ask you directly, what if the pain you're carrying right now is the exact signal that you're on the path of transformation, not off? But what if every ache is evidence that you've stopped playing small, that you've stepped out of safety, that you finally started living in a way that matters? Have you ever thought about that the very thing you hate might be the very thing making you real? Because here's the truth, empires aren't built without exhaustion. Legacies aren't written without loneliness and your future self. The one who commands respect when he walks into a room, the one who looks in the mirror with no apology, that version of you is not born from comfort. He's born in the moment. You stop resisting pain and start respecting it because it's teaching you something. No coach, no book, no motivational video can what you're really made of. And here's the warning. If you reject the lesson, the pain will return louder. Not because life is cruel, but because it's committed to your awakening. Pain comes back until it has reshaped you, rewired you, reminded you of who you were meant to become before the world convinced you to stay soft. So the next time you feel that burn in your chest, that weight behind your eyes, that ache in your gut that makes you want to quit, remember this pain is not your weakness surfacing, it's your armor being welded into place. It's your capacity being stretched so your character can grow into it. And every time you embrace it not as a burden but as a builder, you change your chemistry, your mental code, your self-image, because you begin to associate pain with power, not panic. And when that shift happens, everything changes. Pain becomes a signal, not a stop sign. Fatigue becomes a signpost, not a death sentence, and you begin to walk with a different stride. Not because the path got easier, but because you did. So say this now and mean it. I do not run from pain. I rise through it. I do not flinch when it burns. I listen. I learn. I lead myself forward anyway, because the man who builds through pain becomes the man who cannot be broken by it. And that is what's coming next. If you stay in it long enough, if you let it shape you, long enough if you let it teach you without begging for it to end, then the man who walks out of the season will be one thing above all else, unrecognizable to the one who entered. There's a war happening right now, but no one can see it. Not your friends, not your boss, not even the people closest to you, because this war isn't out there. It's in you, and it's quiet, so quiet. It doesn't scream, it whispers, it doesn't march, it lingers, and that's what makes it dangerous, because you can hide it behind. A smile, bury it beneath, a good morning. Carry it with you while nodding in meetings, holding doors open and saying, I'm fine when you're anything but. So let me ask you, when did you learn to suffer in silence, to wrestle with doubt, in the dark, while projecting confidence in the light, to be at war with yourself every day and pretend like everything's normal? Maybe it started when you failed once and never really recovered. Maybe it was the betrayal you never talked about. Or maybe it was the subtle, slow erosion of self-respect after years of putting everyone before yourself. Whatever it was, it planted a seed. And that seed grew into silence, and that silence became your prison. And here's the part that hurts. No one claps for what you're carrying. No one celebrates what you're surviving, because they don't see it. They don't know what it took for you to get out of bed today, to move through the fog of your own mind, to fight thoughts that never stop speaking but never show their face. They don't know what it means to succeed in public while losing privately, to win awards and still feel like a fraud, to show up for everyone and go home empty. But I do, and I need you to understand that the invisible battle you're in, the one you think disqualifies you, is actually the battle that qualifies you, because it's easy to show up when you're motivated, but it's sacred to show up when you're broken. Let me tell you a story that still makes my chest heavy. There was a man named Marcus, worked in finance in Manhattan, six-figure earner, polished sharp. But what no one knew was that every night after closing the books, he'd go home to silence, not just the silence of a quiet apartment, but the silence of internal chaos. For years, he'd battled a voice that told him he was never enough, not successful enough, not strong enough, not smart enough, and he believed it. Until one night he walked to the edge of the Manhattan Bridge, ready to end the war, the only way he knew how. But something stopped him. Not a phone call, not a miracle, just a sentence one he'd heard earlier that day from a stranger on the subway who said, "You never know who's fighting for their life in silence." And that line hit him like thunder, because in that moment he realized he wasn't alone. He wasn't the only one carrying invisible weight. And maybe the pain had a purpose. That was the night Marcus decided to stop hiding. He started journaling, started speaking to himself out loud, started reframing the story in his head. And every day from that moment forward, he made a vow: I will not suffer in silence, because silence feeds shame, and shame feeds destruction. And the way out is not escape. It's exposure, not to the world, but to yourself, to the truth, to the fight you've been in, and the strength it's giving you. So now I ask you, what have you been carrying that no one knows about? What pain are you disguising as a personality trait? What guilt or grief or fear are you labeling as just who I am? Well, what if the battle you think disqualifies you is actually the birthplace of the most powerful version of you that's ever existed? What if this fight is not proof of your weakness, but evidence of your awakening? Let me tell you something few people have the courage to say. If you are silently battling right now and still showing up, still working, still trying, still hoping, then you are already more powerful than you know. But here's the warning: if you don't face this war intentionally, it will shape you by accident, and not into the man you want to be, but into a shell of who you could have been. This war doesn't end when life gets easier. It ends when you get stronger. And that strength isn't built in public. It's built in your inner world, in your self-talk, in your routines, in the way you respond to your lowest moments. So the next time you feel like you're unraveling on the inside while holding it together on the outside, don't judge yourself. Recognize what's happening. You're in training, spiritual, emotional, psychological training. And this war is building something in you that can't be shaken, but you have to fight on purpose. Don't let silence win. Speak even if your voice trembles. Move even if your legs shake. Write even if the words don't make sense, because the war no one sees will one day become the strength everyone respects. And when that day comes, you'll look back and realize the moments that nearly broke you were the ones that built you. There's a brutal truth most men never learn until it's too late. Your feelings will betray you, not because they're evil, but because they're designed for survival, not greatness. And if you build your life based on emotion, you'll always chase comfort. You'll always delay, always hesitate, always talk yourself out of the very thing that could set you free. But motion is different. Motion is commitment without needing a permission slip from your mood. Motion is doing the thing even when the spark is gone, even when your soul feels hollow and your mind begs you to wait just one more day. And that's the pivot point most people never reach, because they're waiting for the right feeling, the right timing, the motivation to flood in like a rescue. But let me ask you something hard. How many blessings have you missed because you didn't feel like moving? How many days have you wasted negotiating with feelings that were never meant to lead you in the first place? How many times have you said, not now, when right now was the only correct answer? Let me tell you about a man named Sean, lived out in Queens, worked nights at the docks and days in the gym, not because he loved it, but because he promised himself that one day he'd build a business that would free his kids from everything he had to endure growing up. But here's the part most people don't see. Sean didn't feel like grinding after a 12-hour shift, didn't feel like lifting. When his joints screamed, didn't feel like selling product door to door with zero results, but he did it anyway because he understood something most men never do. Motion builds identity and identity builds outcomes. He didn't wait to feel like a champion. He acted like one until his nervous system started to believe him, until his results caught up with his repetition, until his identity snapped into place like a lock finally turning with the right key. And here's the warning you need to hear if you continue to wait for the feeling to move. You will spend your entire life stuck in cycles of regret, because feelings change with the weather, but motion is eternal motion, rewires the mind. When you act despite hesitation, your brain records it. When you push despite doubt, your subconscious takes notes, and over time that becomes your pattern. So the question is not, do I feel ready? The question is, what identity am I rehearsing with this next action? Because every move you make is a vote for the man you become. And if you're voting for procrastination, for negotiation, for staying small, that's exactly what your life will reflect. But if you choose to act now, not when it's easy, but now you are casting a vote for the unshakable version of you. And if you don't feel like it, good, that means it's real. That means the old self is fighting back, because it knows its days are numbered, but you can't flinch, you can't fold, you've got to act anyway. That's what greatness looks like. Not glamour, not applause, just raw, unfiltered action, when no one's watching, when nothing's working, yet when your heart isn't in it, but your standard still is. And this is what separates men who finish from men who fantasize, men who talk from men who move. And it's not about being fearless. It's about moving with fear in your throat and doubt in your chest, and deciding that none of it matters more than who you said you would become. And if you really want to change your life, you don't need more inspiration. You need more motion when it hurts. Motion when it's awkward motion, when you're still shaking off yesterday's failure. Because motion doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes your chemistry. It becomes your cure, your anchor, your rhythm. And once that rhythm is installed, something powerful happens. You stop waiting for permission. You stop asking yourself if today is the right day. You wake up and act like the result is already done, because in your mind it is. And from that place, nothing can touch you. And here's the climax, Sean. He built that business, retired. His mother sent his kids to school without debt, not because he felt inspired every day, but because he moved every day. And now, the only difference between you and him is not talent, not background, not luck, it's motion. So what will you do when the feelings fade, when the mood dips, when the voice says, just rest today? Will you pause, or will you prove to yourself that greatness is built by the men who move? Anyway, and if you're waiting for a sign, this is it. The time is now, the action is small, the cost is discomfort, but the reward is a life. You're proud to live, so say it out loud. I move no matter what. I act even when I doubt. I lead with motion. Not emotion, and repeat it until your soul believes it, because the man who moves without needing to feel it becomes the man who no longer needs motivation at all. Let me tell you something. Most people never realize until they're deep into failure, stuck in identity, crisis, wondering why their life doesn't match their ambition. It's not because they didn't dream big enough, it's because they didn't repeat the right things long enough. Repetition is the invisible force that's been shaping your entire life. Whether you knew it or not, every single day, whether you like it or not, you are practicing something, and what you practice, be it fear, delay, anger, or strength, becomes your default. The brain doesn't care if the words are empowering or destructive. It just installs what you repeat. And that's why the most dangerous sentence a man can say is, I already know this, because knowing without repeating is worthless. Growth doesn't come from exposure. It comes from repetition. And I need you to ask yourself right now, what rituals are you rehearsing? Because you have them, even if they're unconscious. Hitting snooze every morning is a ritual. Talking down to yourself in silence is a ritual. Checking your phone before declaring your day's a ritual. And those patterns aren't neutral. They're programming you. So the real question isn't what do I want to become? It's what am I repeating that's keeping me where I am? Let me give you a name. Alex, early 30s, smart, talented, said all the right things. Had a goal, bored, read the books, listened to every podcast on success, but nothing changed year after year. Same job, same bank account, same excuses, until one morning something cracked. Not because of a tragedy or a miracle, but because he stood in front of his mirror and realized he'd been repeating identity, death every single day without knowing it. Every time he said, I'm not ready. Every time he paused before taking action. Every time he gave his energy to distractions instead of direction. That morning he made a vow, simple but radical, to repeat 3 actions and 3 sentences every single day for 90 days, no matter what he called it. The ritual reset. Wake up at 5, cold shower. Write his goals in present tense, then speak out loud. 3 identity statements. I move fast. I finish everything. I start. I do what I say I will do. And for 90 days, through fatigue, setback, silence, he repeated. And somewhere around week 6, things began to shift. Not just in the outer world, but inside. His voice got sharper posture, straighter decisions, quicker. And that's when the lesson landed. He didn't need more motivation. He needed more installation. Because repetition builds identity, and identity builds behavior. And that behavior begins to bend reality. Here's the dangerous part. Most people stop repeating right before the shift happens. They try for a week, don't feel anything, and walk away. Not realizing that breakthrough doesn't come from force, it comes from frequency. So hear this clearly. What you repeat becomes who you are. Repetition is not boring, it's building, it's the gym for your self-image. And every day you rehearse strength, discipline, clarity, even if it doesn't feel real, yet you're coding your future. So what are you rehearsing? Are you repeating defeat dressed as logic, or are you repeating greatness before it even exists? Because here's the mystery. Your brain will believe whatever you say. Often enough, your actions will follow it, and your life will mirror it. Repetition is how you turn vision into evidence. And if you want to change, don't wait for proof. Repeat until the proof appears. Let me say this final line and let it land deep. Your destiny is not determined by what you believe once, but by what you repeat daily without compromise. There comes a moment in every man's life when he has to decide whether he's still flirting with greatness or finally committed to it. And that moment doesn't come with music or a spotlight. It comes in silence, in discomfort, in the question that hits you when no one's around. Have you truly burned the bridge behind you? Or are you still leaving the door cracked, just in case this gets too hard, just in case it takes too long, just in case you want to run back to safety? Because here's the truth, transformation never happens while comfort is still an option. As long as you have an exit, you will use it as long as you have a backup plan. You'll never go all in on the one that matters, and that's why most people fail. Not because they're weak, not because they lack talent, but because they keep one foot in who they used to be. They try to step forward while still dragging the past, like a safety blanket they're too afraid to burn. Let me take you into the story of Derek mid-30s, used to work in sales, decent job, steady income, but a burning desire in his gut to start his own brand. He talked about it for years, made vision boards, wrote business plans, even bought the domain, but he never launched. Why? Because every time it got real, he defaulted to comfort. He told himself he was just being patient, just being smart, but really he was scared to let go of the job title that made him feel safe, scared to walk away from the consistent paycheck, scared to fully admit to the world and to himself that he was serious until one night something shifted. His son, only 9 years old at the time, asked him straight-faced, "Dad, how come you always say you'll do it next year?" And that question cut deeper than any insult, deeper than any rejection, because it exposed the lie he'd been living, that he could chase his dream without ever betting on himself, that he could walk forward while holding the bridge behind him intact. That night, Derek went to his laptop, typed out his resignation, scheduled the launch of his business, and deleted every file folder, contact and opportunity connected to his old role. He didn't ask for advice, didn't explain himself to people who wouldn't understand. He made a vow to himself and to the little boy who had just unknowingly saved him, that there would be no retreat, no reversal, no, if this doesn't work, I'll go back. And that's the moment he became a different man. Not when the brand succeeded, not when the money came, but when he removed the option to fail quietly. And that's what I'm telling you now. Not to quit your job or make some dramatic leap without wisdom, but to look yourself in the mirror and ask the only question that matters: am I still negotiating with who I used to be? Or have I truly decided to become who I was born to be? Because if you're still leaving an escape route open, you're still unsure, and if you're unsure, your mind will find a reason to stop. The second thing's get inconvenient. There's a reason every great general in history who truly wanted to win didn't just march his men forward. He burned the ships they arrived on. He made retreat impossible, and in doing so forced full commitment. And that's the kind of mental warfare you need with yourself right now, because this won't work if you're only in until it hurts. This won't work if you're still checking the temperature before you jump. This only works when you remove the parachute and say, I'm building wings on the way down. And don't mistake this for recklessness. This is discipline. This is ownership. This is the moment when your identity stops being an idea and becomes a non-negotiable. The world respects the man who doesn't flinch, who doesn't look back, who doesn't entertain the what-ifs. So here is your warning. If you don't burn the bridge, you will visit it, and if you visit it long enough, eventually you will cross back over, and everything you said you wanted will fade into the same regret you said you'd never carry again. And here is your truth. If you do burn the bridge, something incredible happens. Clarity arrives, pressure sharpens, urgency builds, and your nervous system begins to align with your vision. Because when you remove the safety net, your survival instinct upgrades into execution mode. So say it now, like your future depends on it. There is no way back. I am not who I was. I do not return to small. I do not negotiate with comfort. I move forward, and I do not look behind. And repeat that until your nervous system gets the message, until your past loses its grip, until your actions and identity match your intention, because the man who burns the bridge behind him becomes the man who builds the path ahead. And from that place, everything changes. There's a lie that's been sold to you since the day you were old enough to dream, and too young to doubt. They told you to wait for the right time. They dressed it up in logic and called it wisdom. They said you'll know when it's right. They said don't rush it. They said timing is everything. But let me ask you something hard. How many opportunities have passed you by while you waited for that perfect alignment that never came? How many times have you paused when you should have pushed, hesitated when you should have leapt, blinked and watched the door close before you ever knocked? How much of your greatness is sitting on the other side of, I'll start when I'm ready. Let me make it plain. There is no perfect time. There is no divine notification that now is safe. There is only now or never. And every second you spend calculating the conditions is a second you're bleeding momentum. Here's the truth. If you wait until it's comfortable, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. And one day you'll look in the mirror and realize the opportunity didn't die. It just stopped waiting for you. Let me take you into the life of Brandon, late 20s. Talented writer, always had a gift for language. People begged him to publish. Coaches offered to back him. Friends told him he had something special. But Brandon was addicted to the someday drug. Someday when I have more time. Someday when I'm financially stable. Someday when I'm more confident, but someday never showed up. And after 10 years of waiting, he watched someone with half his skill rise to the place he was meant for. Not because they were better, but because they moved. That night, Brandon sat on the floor of his one-bedroom apartment and realized something that burned into his soul forever. The cost of waiting is not just delay, it's regret. And regret is the heaviest thing a man can carry, heavier than pressure, heavier than failure. Because failure gives feedback, but regret gives you nothing but silence. And if you're hearing this right now, thinking that you still have time, let this be your wake-up call. The clock is not your friend. The calendar doesn't owe you clarity. And the version of you that's supposed to be legendary is suffocating under the weight of your excuses. What if you stopped lying to yourself about being patient and called it what it really is? Fear dressed as timing, because most people don't wait out of strategy. They wait out of hesitation, and hesitation is the quiet killer of every dream. Let me ask you, what are you pretending to prepare for, when the truth is you're just afraid to be seen, starting small, afraid to begin, before you're polished, afraid to try without applause? Here's the warning. If you keep feeding fear by delaying your move, it will grow stronger than your desire, and one day your own mind will convince you that it was never meant for you. But you and I both know that's a lie, because you've seen it, you felt it. The vision doesn't visit everyone, but it came to you for a reason, and visions expire if you don't move. So here's the decision point. Do you keep telling the world you're not ready, or do you become the man who acts while he's still trembling? Because the ones who win didn't wait to feel ready. They moved and let readiness catch up. They stepped forward before the plan was perfect. They built faith through action, not comfort. And that's what you have to do right now. Not later, not after this video, not next month now. Start the thing. Write the line, make the call, send the email, walk into the fear. Like it owes you something, because it does. And if you're looking for the sign you've been waiting for, this is it. The myth of perfect timing is dead, and your future will not be built by the man who prepares forever. It will be built by the one who starts before he feels ready and refuses to stop once he begins. Every man wants to win until the pressure rises and emotion takes over, and that's where the real war begins. Not in the world, but in the mind, because if you don't learn to lead your emotional state will lead you, and it will not take you where you want to go. It will take you where fear feels safe, where doubt feels familiar, where hesitation feels justified, and you won't even notice it happening because the fall is silent. Emotional drift doesn't announce itself. It disguises itself as I'm tired today, or I'll handle it tomorrow. And before you know it, you've traded discipline for mood, focus for frustration, and mission for meltdown. So let me ask you, when the pressure hits, who's in control? The leader or the passenger? The voice that's clear, or the voice that's panicked? The one you trained to lead, or the one you've been obeying since you were boyish? Because here's the truth most people avoid. Your feelings are not facts. They are weather patterns. They shift. They lie. They trick you into overreacting, retreating, blaming, quitting. And if you haven't practiced emotional command, you will fall every time life shakes the table. Let me tell you about Jonathan, late 30s. Divorced, rebuilding his business from zero, working out of his car some days because pride was too expensive and failure wasn't an option. I met him on a Tuesday morning when most people were still asleep. He was pacing outside a gas station, slapping his chest, whispering to himself, "We don't panic, we don't fold, we move." And I asked him what that was about. He told me, "I promised myself I'd never let emotion decide my next step again. So I lead my state every day, no matter what that was." His ritual, his command center, his anchor. And it wasn't for show, it was survival, because when the fear kicked in, he didn't wait for it to pass. He redirected it. He trained himself to name the emotion, but not become it, to separate from the storm while standing in it. And that's what emotional leadership is: not denial, but direction. It's not pretending the pain isn't real. It's choosing what to do because it's real. And that's where most people lose the battle. They think emotional control means numbness, means being robotic. But no, it means knowing exactly what you feel and still choosing what aligns with who you are not, what your momentary mood demands. It means breathing when everything inside you screams, holding your posture when your chest tightens, speaking power when your mind races with excuses. Because let me make this clear, if you only take action when your emotions allow it, your life will reflect your lowest state. But if you build the muscle of leading yourself when the fire rises, when the tears build, when the old identity tries to pull you back, you become unstoppable. And here's the warning: if you don't lead your emotions, they will lead you to ruin. And they'll do it with logic. They'll sound reasonable, like just take a break, or this isn't working, or you've done enough. But that's not leadership. That's emotional weakness dressed up as self-care. And if you let that run the show, you will always find a reason to shrink. So what do? Instead, you create anchors. You install commands. You rehearse power like it's a sacred obligation. You decide who you are before the emotion comes. So when it does, it meets resistance, not surrender. Try this right now. Next time fear rises, say, I see you, but I do not follow you next time. Anger spikes, breathe in deep and ask, what's the most powerful version of me do next? Because that 1 second of pause is the space where kings are forged. And that's how you lead your state, not through magic, but through mastery, repetition, awareness, and deliberate identity. So say this out loud and let it sink deep. I do not obey emotion, I obey. Mission say it until it becomes your default, because the man who can lead himself through chaos does not need perfect conditions to win. And that man is the one the world follows. Not because he's loud, but because he's rooted, he's stable, he's reliable when everything else is shaking. And if you can become that man, your results won't just change. Your identity, will your future, will your legacy, will not. Because life got easier, but because you became stronger than your own storm. Every result in your life, every outcome, every limit, every breakthrough, it all flows from one source, the belief system running your mind. And what most people don't understand is that belief isn't something you're born with. It's something you install consciously or unconsciously every single day. You're not stuck because life is unfair or because success is reserved for the chosen. You're stuck because your mental operating system hasn't been rewritten. And until you command your mind will command your life, and it will do it based on old code, inherited fear, borrowed limits, and silent agreements you never consciously made, but now live by. So let me ask you something real. Whose beliefs are you still carrying? Your father's doubts, your teacher's criticism, your ex's opinion, your childhood trauma? When did you decide what you're really capable of? Or did you never decide at all and just let life install whatever showed up first? That's the danger of unconscious thinking. It feels like truth, but it's really just repetition, and repetition becomes law if you never interrupt it. Let me take you inside the story of Mike, 42, Brooklyn-born, smart. Intense, started 3 businesses that never went anywhere. Not because he lacked skill, but because every time he got close to the next level, something inside would whisper, this isn't you. He'd sabotage the deal, delay the launch, overthink the move. And when I sat down with him one night, I asked him, what's the dominant belief you say to yourself when no one's watching? He paused, looked down and said quietly, I'm not the kind of guy who wins that. Right there. That sentence was the virus, and it had been running his life for 20 years. Not because he chose it, but because he never challenged it. So we did something radical for the next 30 days. Before he touched his phone, before he answered a single email, he would stand in front of the mirror and speak one new belief into his nervous system. I am the man who finishes. I am the man who earns. I am the man who builds. He said it every morning, even when it felt fake, especially when it felt fake, because repetition plus emotion rewires the brain. That's not philosophy, that's neuroscience. And around week 4, something shifted. His posture changed, his tone changed, his action changed, not because of motivation, but because his mind finally had new instructions. And that's what I need you to understand. Now, your subconscious does not care what's true. It only cares what's repeated. And whatever you speak with enough consistency, with enough emotional weight, with enough alignment, becomes the default programming. Your life will mirror. So here's the warning. If you're not actively installing belief, you're passively absorbing limits. And most of those limits aren't even yours. They're remnants of someone else's fears embedded in your mind, because you never stop to uninstall them. But you can, starting today. And it begins with one simple principle. You must speak who you are becoming, louder than the voice of who you used to be. You must replace I'm not ready with I execute, now replace. I always mess this up with. I'm the man who adapts fast, replace. I don't know if I can with. Watch me not once, not twice, but daily, consistently, until your nervous system begins to rewire your identity around the words you chose, not the ones you inherited. And don't get it twisted. This is not fake it till you make it. This is train it till you become. Belief is not hope. Belief is a decision backed by pattern. And if you change the pattern, you change the man. But the man must lead the pattern first. So let me ask you again, what belief are you going to install this week? Not in theory, but in ritual. What sentence will you say every morning before the world speaks first? What truth will you tattoo into your nervous system so deeply that doubt can't find space to breathe? Because here's the reality. Your mind is a command center and it's waiting for orders. If you don't give it the order, it will obey. The default, and the default never builds legacies. The default never breaks cycles. Only command does. So speak this now and speak it like a vow. I do not negotiate with old beliefs. I install power. I install identity. I install victory and repeat it until your body believes it. Your actions reflect it and your life proves it, because the man who commands his mind commands his future. You're standing on the edge right now, not of some metaphor, not of a motivational line, but of a decision that rewires your entire identity, because everything you've heard up until this point, every word, every story, every moment of truth was never about hype. It was about revealing one thing. The version of you that you've been running from is the version you're finally ready to become. But you've got to choose it right here, right now. Not later, not after one more excuse, not when it's more convenient, not when fear finally shuts up, because fear won't shut up until you stop giving it a microphone. This is the final push, the line in the sand, the moment when you decide that this life you say you want is not just something you hope for, it's something you claim, because there's something deep inside you that's been waiting for this moment. Maybe it's been buried under disappointment, under distraction, under delay. Maybe it's the 17-year-old version of you that used to believe in magic before you were told to be realistic. Maybe it's the man who's had enough of shrinking, enough of hesitation, enough of feeling the weight of regret and calling it normal. But whatever it is, it's awake now, and it's not going to wait forever, because right now you're staring down the question that separates men who almost change from men who never go back. And it's this: are you still going to let the man you've been decide how far the man you could become gets to go, or are you going to stand up inside your own mind and say, I don't go back, I don't fold, I don't shrink when it gets real? Because hear me, if you back down now, you will regret it, and not just today, but 10 years from now, you'll remember this exact moment, and you'll know this was the split second where the tide could have turned, but you chose safe over certain. But if you lean in, if you say, I've had enough of feeling like a ghost in my own life, I've had enough of hoping things change, and I've decided to change them, then you will become the man who doesn't just break patterns. You become the man who builds legacies, because no one's coming to save you. But that's not bad news. That's your superpower, because if you created this life you're in, now you can create a new one from this moment forward, and the only requirement is this: you decide, and you decide fully. No half-hearted declarations, no backup plans, no if this doesn't work, I'll go back to comfort, because this is the part where you don't just listen to words, you become the embodiment of them. This is the part where you stop saying someday and start saying it's already mine. This is where you stop trying to change and start becoming, and it starts with the smallest yet most powerful action you can take right now. Stand up if you're sitting down, feel your feet on the floor, feel your breath in your chest, feel the weight of all the pressure you've survived, and now say these words out loud with your chest open, your spine straight, your voice full of certainty. I don't quit. I don't go back. I don't look for the easy way. I lead myself through this fire, and I rise with proof I was forged for it. And if that hit something in your chest, if you felt that heat in your throat or that ache in your gut, if you know this moment was meant for you, then do one thing that marks this moment for the rest of your life. Go to the comments right now and write it with force. I don't quit. Make it a promise, make it a tattoo to your future self, that from this day forward you act like the man who is already transformed. And if you're watching this and still feel unsure, still feel like maybe this wasn't your moment, let me ask you one last thing. What are you waiting for? What permission do you think is coming? What sign do you think will appear that hasn't already shown up in your pain, in your pressure, in your repeated desire to change? The answer has been speaking to you all along, but now the voice isn't whispering, it's roaring, and it's telling you this is your hour, this is your chapter, this is your revelation, and you don't rise by chance. You rise by choice, and you've already made it by staying this long, by listening this deep, by showing up. When most people click away, you've proven that you are not like the rest. So now finish it. Prove to yourself that this was more than a speech. This was the moment you became the one. Now stand up and don't come back the same.